Thank you all for being here today. Before we begin, just want to cover a few quick housekeeping notes. So for those of you who don't know me, pretty sure we all do, hello and welcome. My name is Angel. So I'm a Masters of Counselling student, and today's session is not a part of my course. It is something that I'm doing as a part to people who can't come to therapy for whatever reason, just need a safe space to feel connected, feel belonging, and just a safe space to be amongst one another in mental health. So it will be recorded for educational purposes. Nobody's faces will be in the frame except me, and if you share anything, it also won't be included in the final recording. We will be discussing mental health, of course, so which can sometimes bring up some strong emotions, and this is about emotional regulation today. So if at any point you do feel unwell or overwhelmed, please just prioritize your own well-being. You're free to step out, take a breather, grab a drink, or just leave entirely. It is just up to you. Just tune into you and what you need. So, a few weeks ago, I had an experience that kind of changed everything for me. And maybe that's why this one had to be a little bit postponed. So, an old story came up for me, and one that really put me back in that seat of just the victim mentality. And in that moment, my body just became an absolute storm. Heart was pounding in my chest, nausea was going through me, my breathlessness and shaking, and it was just uncontrollable. But I tried to remember something important in that moment, to not fight such somatic experiences and emotions. My fear in that time wasn't my enemy. It was an inner guidance that was pointing me towards what mattered to me. So you can think of emotions like weather. When you step outside and it starts to rain, you don't get angry at the sky for being negative, right? You don't try to think this rain away, right? You simply just notice it's raining and you adjust accordingly. You get your umbrella, you get your raincoat, you get your boots, and your emotional life works in much the same way. So right now there is weather happening inside of you, and it's happening all the time. Maybe it's that sunshine of excitement, maybe it's the storm clouds of anxiety, or maybe it's the fog of mystery and uncertainty. Whatever it is, I want you to know that it's not good or bad. It is information. We have put negative and positive connotations on emotions for so long. They are simply just sensations. And today we're going to learn how to read your emotional weather like a master meteorologist. Hi guys. So let me ask you something, and raise your hand if you've ever been told to just think positive. Think more positively. Yeah, and raise your hand again if you've ever felt guilty for feeling sad, or for feeling angry, or for feeling afraid. Have you ever felt guilty for feeling any of these? Yeah, and that's the thing, everybody experiences that, and it sucks. So what we've been sold is a lie. The lie that emotions come in two categories, that they come in bad ones and good ones. The lie that we should maximize the good as much as possible and completely eliminate the bad. The lie that emotional health means being happy all the time. It isn't just wrong in some senses, it can actually be really destructive. And research from Harvard Medical School shows that people who do suppress their negative emotions have higher rates of cardiovascular disease, of compromised immune functions, and increased anxiety over time. So when we fight our emotions, we're literally fighting our own biology. But here's what's even more fascinating. Those negative emotions that we're trying to eliminate, they're not negative, and that's what I'm trying to say, that they're all information, they're all data for you to register. So your anger could be your boundary detector. Or your anxiety is a preparation system. Your sadness isn't just depression, it's your processing mechanism for loss and for change. And so I want to tell you about a friend of mine as well, who came to me convinced that she had an anger problem. She would say, I would just get angry over everything. Traffic, my boss, my partner leaving dishes in the sink, never doing his laundry. things like that. And it was very interesting as we talked, because we discovered something fascinating, and that was that her anger wasn't random. It was actually very precise. She got angry when people cut in line because fairness mattered to her. And she got angry at her boss's micromanaging because she valued autonomy and authenticity. She got angry about dishes because she needed partnership and respect in her relationship. She didn't have an anger problem. Her anger was trying to tell her, your values here are being violated, and you need to take action on it. And this is the fundamental truth about emotions. They're not random. They're all carrying vital intelligence about what matters to you. But we've forgotten how to decode that language. For instance, anger is that boundary detector, as I said. So it shows up when something important to you is threatened or violated. And that surge of anger when somebody interrupts you for the 5th time is not saying that you're an unreasonable person. It is telling you that you need to set a boundary. By the way, I do have more of these on the 2nd page of your booklet as well. And so fear is your threat assessment system. So it scans for danger and prepares you to respond. But here's what's fascinating about fear in particular. It doesn't just detect physical threats. It detects threats to anything that you value. And so sadness is your loss detection system and processing system. So it shows up when something important has ended or been taken away. So that sort of like ache that you feel when a friendship ends. It's not a sign of weakness. It's just you honoring the love that was there. And even anxiety, that emotion that we really love to hate on, it carries crucial information too. And it often appears when our values are under threat or when we feel that we're facing uncertainty about something that matters to us. And here's what I want you to understand about this. Your emotions evolved over millions of years to help us survive and thrive. Every emotion you ever felt served a purpose, even if you couldn't see it at the time. So now I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds nice. It does, but is there actual science behind it as well? And there is. Dr. Lisa Fieldman Barrett's groundbreaking work at Northeastern University revolutionized our understanding of how emotions work. So using brain imaging technology, she discovered that emotions are not hardwired reactions. They're predictions that your brain makes based on your past experiences. So your brain is constantly asking, what's happening here? And what should I do about it? It uses emotion as a way to rapidly process information and communicate with you. And here's a really crucial part. The more precisely you can identify what you're feeling, the better your brain gets at this process. And Barrett calls this emotional granularity. Most people have what she calls emotional color blindness. They see emotions as good, bad, stressed, fine, very broadly. But people with high emotional granularity can distinguish between frustrated and disappointed, distinguish between anxious and excited, distinguish between lonely and sad. And here's why this matters. Studies show that people with higher emotional granularity have better mental health, stronger relationships, and better resilience overall. But why? Because when you name it, you can navigate it much better. When you know what you're feeling, let's say overwhelmed by competing priorities rather than just stressed, you can address the actual problem. When you recognize that I'm disappointed that my effort wasn't acknowledged, rather than just upset, you can have the right conversations. And the neuroscience is clear on this as well. Curiosity about your emotions literally rewires your brain for resilience. And let's get practical with this a little bit. So you understand now that emotions are information, it's data, and not directives. And you know the science behind why curiosity works better than any sort of criticism or judgment over what you're feeling. But how do you actually do this, especially when you're in the middle of an emotional storm? So I want to teach you a technique that will change how you relate to emotions, and it's called R.A.I.N. And it's based on decades of research on neuroscience and psychology. And R.A.I.N stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and navigate. And let me walk you through each of those steps. So step one is recognize. The first step is simply noticing what's happening in your emotional landscape. So recognition, it starts with a pause. When you feel that familiar surge of discomfort, instead of immediately trying to fix it or push it away, just take a breath and tune in with it and ask, what am I feeling right now? And be specific, right? Instead of, I feel bad, just say, I feel anxious about tomorrow's presentation and a bit frustrated that I'm behind on all the preparation for it. Remember Dr. Barrett's research on emotional granularity. The more precisely you can name what you're feeling, the better equipped you are to respond to it. And then we have step two, allow. And allow means letting the emotion be present without immediately trying to fix it. This doesn't mean wallowing or being overwhelmed by the emotion. It means making space for it, the way you might make space for an unexpected guest. You don't have to like them, but you can at least acknowledge that they're there. And this is a radical shift from this anger is here and I hate it and I don't want it, to this anger is here and that's okay. This is what it feels like to be human for me right now. Allowing is kind of like opening a window in a really stuffy room. You're creating space for fresh air to come in. And then we have step three, investigate. So now comes the detective work. With compassion and curiosity, investigate what this emotion is trying to tell you. This is where you become an emotional scientist, gathering data rather than making any judgments. So ask yourself in those times, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What do I care about that might be at threat right now or at risk? What might I need right now? If you're feeling angry, you can investigate what boundary might have been crossed. What do I value right now that feels threatened? If you're anxious, maybe you could ask, what am I worried about? What do I care about right now that feels at risk? And then we have step four, which is navigate. So based on the wisdom from your emotional investigation that you just performed, you decide how to respond. This is the shift from being reactive to being responsive. The navigation is both internal and external. So sometimes you'll realize that you need a little bit more and to practice self-compassion. Sometimes you'll feel that you need to have a difficult discussion about setting a boundary. Sometimes you'll just be able to give yourself permission to rest. The beautiful thing about navigation is that it comes from wisdom rather than an impulse, because you've taken the time to understand what the emotion is trying to tell you. Your response then is informed and intentional rather than reactive. And let me show you how this works in real life. So I was in a meeting a while ago when a colleague interrupted me for about the third time, and I felt that familiar surge of anger rising up within me, right? So recognize, I'm feeling really angry right now. And allow, this anger is here, and it makes sense that I'd feel this way. Investigate. This anger is telling me that I value being heard. It's protecting my sense of dignity and my ability to contribute meaningfully to this conversation. Navigate. So I waited for a natural pause and I said, hey, I'd like to finish this thought before we move on. Is that all right? It's simple, direct, informed by the wisdom of my anger rather than the reactivity of it, rather than the impulse of it. So after that, I felt really heard. And my anger had done its job. It had alerted me to a boundary violation and given me the energy to address that skillfully. And here's what's remarkable about R.A.I.N. The more you practice it, the faster it gets. Because yes, in the beginning, it may take a few minutes each time. But eventually it comes and it goes in seconds, and you can process it in seconds. So in those times, you're literally rewiring your brain to relate to emotions as allies rather than as your enemies. So now we're going to pause and practice what we've been discussing with a little exercise. This will help you experience firsthand how to apply these concepts to your own emotional landscape. So, firstly, we're just going to do a little body scan. So just begin by sitting comfortably in your chair. You can close your eyes, or you can just slightly lower your gaze and look at the floor, whatever's most comfortable for you. And just take 3 deep breaths. Really elongate that exhale through the mouth. And bring your awareness to your body. So we're going to start at the top of your head, and we're slowly going to scan down your body all the way down to your toes. Each body part, piece by piece. And I want you to notice any sensations of tension, of warmth, coolness, heaviness, lightness, tingling, or pressure. Go at your own pace, down through your face, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your torso, your hips, and your legs. Maybe you even notice the sensation of the urge of wanting to move as well. Just try not to change anything, just tune in to what's already there. Your body is always giving you information about your emotional state if you pause and listen. Now gently ask to yourself, what am I feeling right now? Try to be as specific as possible. If you notice multiple emotions, that's completely normal. Just name them as best you can. Remember, the more precise you can name your emotions, the better equipped you are to work with them. Maybe you're feeling curious or skeptical about this exercise. Perhaps a bit anxious about trying something new. Maybe there's some fatigue from your day or from your week. Or maybe anticipation over what's coming next. Whatever you're feeling, just notice it without judgment. And then I want you to choose one emotion to work with using that R.A.I.N technique. It could be something that you're feeling right now in this room, or something that's been recurring for you recently. Just try not to choose a big, overwhelming emotion for now. Something manageable. So I want you to name this emotion to yourself. I am feeling . Give yourself permission to feel this emotion exactly as it is. It's okay that I'm feeling this way. It's okay that I'm feeling. This is part of being human too. And then get curious about that emotion. What might this emotion be trying to tell me? What do I care about that feels important here? And where do I feel this in my body? And then based on what you've learned from this emotion just now, what's one small step that you might take? This could be internal, maybe just practicing more self-compassion. Or maybe it's external, like taking an action. Take a few more deep breaths now. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And notice if you feel any difference between now compared to when we first started this exercise. Has anything shifted? Remember that this isn't about fixing any emotions. It's about developing a new relationship with them. So when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. The R.A.I.N technique is also in your booklet as well. So now that you have this R.A.I.N technique in your toolkit, let's talk about that deeper transformation that happens when you shift from resistance to acceptance. This isn't just about managing your emotions better, it's about fundamentally changing your relationship with your own humanity. Most of us have been running on an unconscious program that sounds a little something like, if I can just control my emotions, if I can just feel good most of the time, then I'll be okay. Then I'll feel worthy. Then I'll be lovable. But this program is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be human. Humans are not designed to feel good all the time, as well, nice as that would be. We're designed to feel appropriately, to have emotional responses that match the complexity and the richness of our experiences. So let me share with you something that might surprise you. The goal is not to eliminate resistance to difficult emotions either. The goal is to notice any resistance when it arises and get curious about that too, because it's just another emotion. Resistance is also information. So when you notice yourself fighting against maybe sadness, that resistance might be telling you that you've learned somewhere that it isn't safe to feel. When you resist anger, maybe that resistance might be protecting you from memories of anger that felt dangerous or destructive. So we don't resist our resistance either. We investigate it with the same curiosity we bring to any other emotion as well. And it's not wrong either, this resistance. It's just information about how you've been learning and how you've learned to protect yourself. So instead of judging this resistance as well, can you get curious about it? Can you thank it for protecting you? Can you acknowledge that this resistance developed for good reasons, even if it's not serving you right now? This is what acceptance really means. It doesn't mean liking everything or being passive about your emotional life. It means acknowledging what's true in this moment without immediately needing to change it. And here's something beautiful that happens when you start accepting your own emotions. You will automatically create more space for other people's emotions as well. It's like emotional acceptance is contagious in the best possible way. Because when you think about it, when you're fighting your own anger, how much patience do you have for somebody else's frustration? Not a lot. Or when you're trying to suppress your own sadness, how present can you be with a friend who's grieving over a loved one's passing? Or when you're at war with your own emotions, everyone else's emotions feel like threats to you as well. But when you are at peace with your inner emotional landscape, you can become a safe harbor for others. You stop needing other people to feel okay for you to feel good too. So you stop taking their emotions personally because you understand that emotions are simply just information. And let me tell you about a story that my lecturer once told me. And we'll call them John and Jane for the sake of this story. So they were on the brink of divorce after 15 years of marriage. They were convinced that they fought all the time. But as they learnt those principles, they realized that they weren't really fighting about the dishes or about how to raise their children that they originally claimed to be fighting about. Because John would get frustrated about work and Jane would immediately try to fix his frustration and cheer him up. When that didn't work, she would get frustrated about John's frustration and how he's not wanting to fix it. And then John would get angry about Jane being frustrated with him over the frustration, and around it goes. So neither of them had learnt that emotions aren't these sorts of emergencies that needed to be fixed immediately. Once they learned to use the R.A.I.N technique, everything changed. John learned that when Jane felt anxious about their finances, for example, she wasn't asking him to fix it immediately. She was simply just voicing something about something she cared about. And Jane learned that when John felt overwhelmed at work, he wasn't asking her to solve his problems. He was processing his experience. And within months, their fights that they were having turned into conversations. And they weren't exactly necessarily agreeing with each other more, but they were understanding each other more deeply. They learnt the difference between emotional intimacy and emotional management. And this is one of the greatest gifts that emotional acceptance can bring you. It allows you to love people without needing to manage their emotional experience. So you can witness their joy without needing to match it. You can witness their pain without needing to fix it. You can hold space for their anger without taking it personally. And this information goes beyond romantic relationships. It changes how you parent, how you work with colleagues, how you interact with your friends, how you even interact with strangers on the street. I see it in families all the time, especially. So when parents stop being afraid of their children's difficult emotions, their children usually become more emotionally open. They share their fears, their disappointments, their struggles, and not because their parents are giving them this great advice, but because their parents don't talk them out of their feelings or try to fix their problems unless they're asked to. So now let's talk about how to make this transformation sustainable. That emotions are data is one thing. Living that truth day to day is another. You need practices that will help you remember and embody this new relationship with your emotions, especially when life gets challenging. And it always gets challenging, unfortunately, doesn't it? So you can think of emotional resilience like physical fitness. You don't go to the gym once and expect to be strong and healthy forever. It's an ongoing process. You maintain it through and develop it through consistent practice, and you maintain it through that ongoing attention. And emotional resilience works in the same way. So I'm going to give you 5 practical tools that you can help to build and maintain your emotional acceptance practice. And these aren't just theories, they are practices that I've used myself and teach to those who are transforming their relationship with difficult emotions. So the first practice we have is your daily emotional weather report. So this one's really good to do before you even get out of bed in the morning. Before you check your phone or dive into your day, just take 2 minutes, just laying in bed and just checking in with your emotional landscape. Asking, what am I feeling right now? What emotions are present within me right now as I start this day? And you're not trying to change anything, you're just simply noticing it. Are you feeling excited about something coming up? Anxious about a deadline coming up? Maybe sad about something that happened yesterday? Maybe grateful for a good night's sleep? And you can even write it down if that helps, or you can just take a mental note. The goal is to start your day with emotional awareness rather than avoidance of your emotions. And this simple practice does something really powerful because it trains your brain to see emotions as information. And that's worth paying attention to instead of just white noise, background noise that you can ignore, which is how we tend to do it. And so, practice 2, the emotion-body connection check. So several times throughout the day, what you can do is you can just pause and ask, where do I feel this emotion in my body? Because emotions aren't just mental experiences. They're whole body experiences. So anxiety might show up as a tension in your chest, maybe a shaking of your hands a little bit. Anger might appear as heat in your face, maybe a clenching and a tension in your arms. And sadness might just feel like a heaviness in your entire body or just in your limbs. And when you will locate an emotion in your body, you got to breathe into that area. Imagine your breath is basically just carrying curiosity and kindness to that part of yourself. You might even place a hand there if it makes that better for you and just acknowledge it, going, I feel you, I see you, I know you're there. And this practice helps you develop what researchers call interoceptive awareness, the ability to sense what's happening inside your body. And the stronger that this awareness becomes, the earlier you can catch emotional shifts and respond to them more wisely. And then practice 3, we have the curiosity journal. So at the end of each day, you can write about one emotion you experienced using this format. So today, I felt an emotion. When, name the situation. I think this emotion was trying to tell me the message or the information from it. What I learned about myself or my values from this emotion is, and then your little insight. So for example, today I felt really frustrated when my coworker interrupted me in the meeting. I think this frustration was trying to tell me that I value being heard and respected in professional settings. What I learned about myself is that I need to get better at advocating for my own voice in group settings. And this practice transforms your emotional experiences from random events into learning opportunities. And over time, you'll start to see patterns in your emotional life and develop deeper understanding of your own values and needs. And so practice 4, we have the self-compassion reset. So when you notice yourself being critical or judgmental about your emotions, try this 3-step reset. So first, acknowledge the suffering. This is a moment of great difficulty for me, and I'm struggling right now. And then second, remember the common humanity. Struggling with difficult emotions is part of being human. I am not alone in this. And then third, offer kindness to yourself. Saying, may I be kind to myself in this moment? May I give myself the compassion that I really need? And this practice, developed by Dr. Kristen Neff, helps interrupt the cycle of self-criticism that often makes difficult emotions much worse. So when you treat yourself with kindness, the same kindness that you'd offer a good friend, you create emotional safety needed for healing and growth. And then practice 5 is the value-based response. So when you're facing a challenging emotion, ask yourself, if I were responding to this emotion from my deepest values, rather than these immediate impulses, what would I do? This question helps you move from reactive to responsive. Instead of being driven by the emotion, you're informed by it, while being guided by your values. So for example, if you're feeling angry about your teenager for breaking curfew, your impulse might be to start running up there and yelling and screaming at them and giving them a harsh punishment. But if you pause and ask what your values would suggest you do, you're probably going to find that your values for connection or for teaching is going to lead you to have a calm conversation with them instead. So before we conclude, I want to teach you about one of the most powerful emotional resilience exercises there is. And it's based on groundbreaking neuroscience research from Rick Hansen and his work on positive neuroplasticity. Because here's the problem. Our brains have what's called a negativity bias. So we're wired to notice and remember negative experiences more than positive ones. It kept our ancestors alive back in the day. But in modern life, it means that positive experiences basically pass through our minds like water through a sieve. Just runs completely through. Meanwhile, the negative ones stick like Velcro and you can't get them off. But we can deliberately rewire our brains to internalize positive experiences and build that resistance. And this isn't about toxic positivity or bypassing any sort of and pretending everything's fine. It's about making sure that there's genuine moments of goodness in your life actually get turned into lasting strength and you feel them. So we'll practice this together now. So I want you to kind of recall a little positive micro experience. So think back over the last few days and recall a moment where you felt even 1% more supported, proud, connected, peaceful, heard, content, safe, just 1% more. And it doesn't need to be like a huge moment. Maybe it's just someone's genuine smile at seeing you, a text from a friend who's checking in, your dog greeting you at the door with tail wagging. So once you have one, we're going to use what Dr. Hansen calls the heal process. So we're going to have that experience. So I want you to bring that moment back to mind as vividly as you can. Don't try to just think about it. Try to re-experience it. Where were you? What did you see at that time? What did you hear? What did you smell? What did you feel? And what did you taste, if anything? And then we're going to enrich it. We're going to make it more vivid, heighten those colors, up the saturation on it, make it more vibrant. Feel those sensations again in the body. Feel the meaning of it. If it was a moment of connection with your friend, what did that sense of connection feel like in your chest? And then we're going to absorb it. And this is the crucial part of this process. Instead of letting this good feeling just pass through the mind, imagine your body drinking it in like warm sunlight. Picture it soaking into every one of your cells, becoming part of you, becoming part of your body. And stay with this feeling for 15 to 20 seconds. 15 to 20 seconds is how long it takes for your brain to start building new neural pathways. And while you're holding this positive feeling, you can briefly, this is optional, but you can briefly bring to mind a challenging situation that you're facing. So don't try to analyze it or try to solve it. Just let this positive energy, this positive state, gently touch that difficulty. You're not bypassing that challenge. You're strengthening yourself to meet it better. And now take a deep breath and notice what shifted within you. What was it like to slow down and absorb the good experience rather than just letting it pass through and move on? What you experienced is the foundation of emotional resilience, building stronger internal baseline of calm, connection, and worthiness that you can draw on when life gets challenging. So for the next week, I really encourage you to start just taking in the good once a day. Look for those small moments of positivity and spend 20 seconds absorbing them into your body. Just notice what changes happen over time. So as we approach the end of our time together, we're going to shift to our end of year reflections and wrap up. Because I want to talk about conscious completion. The ability to end something with awareness rather than just letting time pass. Because picture this, you're standing at the airport, you're watching somebody struggling with their very overstuffed suitcase. The zipper is straining, clothes are spilling out everywhere, and they are wrestling it towards the counter. We've all been there, right? But here's what I find fascinating about this, is that we do the exact same thing with our emotional lives. Right now, most of us are unconsciously packing invisible baggage, unprocessed experiences, reactive patterns, emotional residue from the past 12 months. And we're about to waltz this straight into January without examining what we're carrying. So we're going to open that suitcase a little bit and we're going to start making conscious decisions about what deserves to cross that threshold for us and with us. Because research shows that when we basically operate on autopilot for 40% of our waking hours. That is nearly half of our day we are working on autopilot. We are running on old programming rather than our conscious choice. And this shows up most clearly in the gap between our intentions and our behavior. Because I want you to think back to January of this year. What did you intend? Now think about how you showed up in March, in July, in October. Where did that intention meet reality? And where did it not? The gap between intention and reality is information showing us where we've been operating unconsciously. So before we can step consciously into a new year, we need to complete this one with an honest recognition of what actually happened. So 3 questions we can use to transform how we relate to this. And it's going to be on the, I believe, last page on your handout, so if you just turn it to the back. And I don't want you to overthink these questions at all. Just let your first instincts guide you. If you're thinking for more than 10 seconds, I do want you to stop. I want you to close your eyes, put your pen down, take a few deep breaths, and then try again. And maybe you might need to do that a few times before you can actually hear and finally hear that first intuitive answer without overthinking. So we're going to start with, where did I act from intention versus reaction this year? So write what comes up. Maybe it's work, your relationships, your stress responses. This develops your capacity to see patterns clearly. Maybe you were intentional in your career choices, but more reactive in your relationships. And then second question, what pattern am I ready to leave behind? So something you've been carrying that just doesn't serve you anymore. So think about the whole behavior cycle. It could be the trigger, thought, feeling, action, or aftermath. Just what pattern are you ready to leave behind? Maybe it's saying yes when you meant no and then resenting it. And then finally, what one choice do I want to make differently? Notice one choice, not 10. Real change is so much easier and happens through specificity. There we go, got it out. So it's connected to what you're learning about yourself and what you have learned about yourself over these last 12 months. So be specific. Instead of just be more patient, maybe it's take 3 breaths before responding when I feel triggered. All right, and then once you're done, I want you to read what you've written. This is your roadmap for consciousness. In a few weeks, you'll cross a threshold, not just from December 31st to January 1st, but from one version of yourself to another. And the question is, will you cross it consciously or unconsciously? So I want you to imagine yourself standing at that threshold, December 31st to January 1st. And in one hand, you're holding what you've just written now. Your honest assessment of this year, your recognitions of patterns that no longer serve you, and your conscious choice about how you want to show up differently. And in the other hand, you're holding everything else. All the unconscious baggage, the reactive patterns, the unexplained habits. And conscious crossing looks like basically you take what serves and you leave the rest behind. And you don't leave it behind violently and with judgment, but with gratitude, because it did help you. So you can say, thank you, anxiety pattern, for trying to protect me, but I'm choosing something different now. Thank you, people pleasing, for helping me survive really difficult times, but I'm ready to try authenticity now. And this isn't about becoming a different person overnight. It's about becoming a more conscious version of who you already are. So it's about carrying forward your wisdom, your growth, and your hard-won insights, and leaving behind the patterns that keep you stuck. The new year doesn't magically transform us, but we can transform how we enter it. We can cross that threshold with agency, with self-knowledge, instead of wishful thinking, with conscious choice, instead of unconscious repetition. So what you've written today isn't a resolution. It's not a New Year's resolution. It's a commitment to remain conscious. And that makes a massive difference. Because when you know yourself clearly, you can choose yourself consciously. And that's how real change happens. Not through hoping for a better year, but by becoming someone capable of creating one, which I already know that all of you are absolutely capable of doing. So you'll find a QR code on your handout that links to a free breathwork guided audio that I created just for you. It'll also be up on YouTube in a few days. So thank you again so much all for being here today. And thank you so much.